From the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians. Brothers and sisters, you were at that time without Christ, alienated by from the community of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, without hope, without God in the world. But now, in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off have become near by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace. He made both one and broke down the dividing wall of enmity through his flesh, abolishing the law with its commandments and legal claims, that he might create in himself one new person in place of the two, thus establishing peace, and might reconcile both with God in one body through the cross, putting that enmity to death by it. He came and preached peace to you who were far off, and peace to those who were near. For through him we both have access in one Spirit to the Father. So then you are no longer strangers and sojourners, but you are fellow citizens with the holy ones and members of the household of God, built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Jesus Christ as the capstone. Through him, the whole structure is held together and grows into a temple sacred in the Lord. In him, you also are being built together into a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Responsorial Psalm. The Lord speaks of peace to his people.
The Lord speaks of peace to his people.
I will hear what God proclaims, the Lord, for he proclaims peace. Near indeed is his salvation to those who fear him, glory dwelling in our land. The Lord speaks of peace to his people. Kindness and truth shall meet, justice and peace shall kiss. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and justice shall look down from heaven. The Lord speaks of peace to his people. The Lord himself will give his benefits. Our land shall yield its increase. Justice shall walk before him, and salvation along the way of his steps. The Lord speaks of peace to his people.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Gird your loins and light your lamps, and be like servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch, and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Imagine for just a moment that you are with the servants described in today's gospel. You're waiting for the master to come home, and when he does, he's probably going to have some needs that the servants will have to take care of. It's been a long day, evidently. He's delayed his coming a few times, and they're probably tired. Okay, you have that situation in mind here? Okay. And I'm wondering how you feel as Master enters the door and asks all of the servants to be seated and he's the one who serves them their meal. Well, I mean, this is unbelievable that someone would do that. And so probably those servants are sitting at the table, looking up and down at each other, you know, smiling and completely out of perspective here. Why would the master do that? Well, it's a lesson in being ready, of course. But I sort of see another theme, very powerfully spoken here, the theme of unity and the joy that unity brings to us. For example, he had just come back from a wedding where a couple have united their lives to each other. Friends and family were probably there to celebrate, to be part of that unity. They probably had a great time and their hearts were filled with joy. So the master comes back home, and there are the poor servants all dragged out and tired from the day. And he said, you know, I want to help you to share that joy too. You should be happy. And so he did what he did there. But I thought that was a beautiful act, uniting them in his joy so that they could be part of a much larger joy. It's like that, isn't it? Sometimes we have opportunities in life to bring great joy to people by simply sharing with them some of the joys and some of the happiness that we have, even if it's a kind word, a compliment, or some project that we might be working on. Unity, in this case, is always the important thing. I love the way Paul sort of summarized that in his letter to the Ephesians, which we just heard a moment ago. At the end of that reading, he is so intent on helping the new Christians to know they're united, actually united with God, that he tells the story about building a temple, not a temple made of wood and stone, but the temple of their lives. Every believer would become one stone in that temple, and God would come and dwell there. Not in a building, but God would dwell in the community that all the people were forming. And what a beautiful sense of unity that is, and how much great joy must have come into people's hearts. And that's what we are all about today, through our religious convictions, yes, most especially through our Cursillos. We've known that we can bring people together, share the joy that we have, help them to realize they are united with God, and to share with them a great joy. So we come now to the table of the Lord, the greatest sign of unity that Jesus ever gave us. Jesus is here tonight. We are part of that temple, and we give praise to him.
Good morning. Did that greeting remind you of your Cursillo weekend when you had no idea what time it was? Or more recently, did it remind you of the COVID-19 lockdown last spring when you could wear your PJs to social media or TV mass while sitting on your couch? Here at Christ the King, you could watch mass on Facebook any time of the day, like a rerun. And it really didn't matter what time it was because you weren't supposed to go anywhere anyway. My name is Cathy Burns. I made my Cursillo weekend number 655 in March 2001. I have to say that every aspect of my life has been pretty amazing thanks to the Cursillo experience. It seems like every time I felt a kind of stagnant, drifting away attitude, a beautiful, faith-filled rectora gives me a call and pulls me back to where I want to be. Even when my brain is saying no, and then my mouth says yes, it proves that God's plan is always going to win. So hey God, what's your plan for this COVID thing? For 40 plus years, we've been building this community of Christians that has a high element of togetherness. We put 9 or 10 people in a room to sleep. We fill the kitchen with volunteers. We circle up and hold hands to say grace. We huddle around posters. We pack the chapel and we pack the church. We hug each other a lot. Then one day, it all stopped. Let me rephrase that. It stopped for all the potential Cursillistas. We that have experienced Cursillo have many tools to fight off the devil that has invaded our country and the world. The devil has always been out to get us, and it seems to me that our society has given up the fight against the evil forces that are taking over our lives. There is a war against religion raging in our country. So many people don't feel it's important to come to church. Children are not being taught and shown the example of putting God first. How can love and light prevail over dark and evil without God in our lives? How can any life matter without first the love of our Creator in our hearts? And when has lying and lack of integrity been accepted as news and a weapon to take down your opponent? It seems that many are okay with having criminals run our country. And do they even recognize which ones are the criminals? We really need to continue to bring people to Christ more than ever. I have a better story of one of God's plans. It's a little history of the home of Northwest Cursillo, Christ the King Parish, and Teens Encounter Christ. I had been working at Christ the King Parish for a short time. It was the summer of 1999. The adult education coordinator recommended that as a staff retreat, we should read the book, The Prayer of Jabez by Bruce Wilkinson. What a powerful little prayer. What a man of action was Jabez. In the whole Bible, this is what it says about Jabez. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed, and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain." So God granted what he had requested. Bruce Wilkinson, in his little book, recommends saying the prayer of Jabez every day. Be careful with that recommendation if you don't understand the power of prayer. We had our staff retreat, and a short time later, Father Jack came to visit Father Levitt and told him that the Cursillo and Teens Encounter Christ organizations needed a permanent site to host adult and teen weekends, and asked if we were planning any expansion at Christ the King. Cursillo and Tech would be willing to help support a joint venture. Imagine how a church's territory could expand. How powerful when a staff of 10 or 12 are praying for expanded territory. My question is, what's a Cursillo? Father Levitt's question is, when can we schedule a meeting? Many meetings took place. Let's build a building for the parish offices, for religious education, for overnight retreats, for fine dining, for meetings, for athletic events. We need a gymnasium, and let's have a chapel, and some more meeting rooms. And showers, we need showers. At each meeting, the building grew. There was a feasibility study. Can we pay for it? Oh, maybe not. We need to build it anyway, and the money will come, and the people will come. Once the decision was made to build, that was when I started seeing miracles, one after another. Our feasibility study said we could only raise 2/3 of the $3.5 million it would take to build what we had in mind. The fact that the Diocese of Peoria approved the whole project was the biggest miracle. because we only had about a third of the money in the bank, and that's unheard of. A parish member designed the structure, a Cursillo member excavated the ravine to set it in. There was such wonderful cooperation and support from all three groups, Cursillo, Christ the King, and Tech, and there still is today. We became believers together when a little book of graphic renderings of biblical texts fell open to the verse of Acts 2:44 to 46. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their property and possessions and divide them among all according to each one's need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple area and to breaking bread in their homes. They ate their meals with exultation and sincerity of heart. Believers together with glad and sincere hearts. Every time something was needed for the building project, there was someone to provide it, and pledges rolled in. I made my Cursillo at Cohen's Hall before the building was completed. I could not wait to find out what it was about Cursillo that made so many people so dedicated to the building project. Many things came clear for me on my Cursillo weekend and the years since. I saw apostolic action in motion. It's everywhere in this building. Be watching for it will bring you closer to Christ. The commitment is awesome, and I still see it every day in the many friends I've made in the parish and in Cursillo. We managed to pay off a $2.2 million debt in 10 years. I never get tired telling that story. We have been using the Believers Together Community Center for 18 years, last August. The calendar from the start was full of many parish activities, rentals and meetings, plus all the Cursillo and Tech weekends and meetings. It was rare before the lockdown to have a date where someone wasn't using a place somewhere in the building. Unavailability of space has turned many groups away over the years. It was such a sad day when the COVID lockdown closed the church and the BTC. All the disappointing cancellations were awful. Fortunately, the loss of revenue has not been an issue because so many Cursillistas and parishioners continue to contribute to the Believers Together Building Fund. The COVID lockdown did make it easier to accomplish the upgrades to the building that we were planning. Scheduling work around events would have been a daunting task. The recent capital campaign at Christ the King Parish included funds to repaint the entire building at a cost of around $35,000, replace all the carpeting for almost $230,000, and continue to change the lighting to high-efficiency LED fixtures, estimated at over $50,000. The painting and carpet are complete, and the lighting will be done by the end of the year so that we qualify for energy rebates. We are following the diocesan and state mandates, masks and social distancing. The church and the Believers Together Center are open to the extent that we can be, with limited numbers. If you have a group of less than 50, give Kim a call to schedule a meeting. My hope and constant prayer is that we can soon huddle together again. God created us to be not lonely, created us to be communities, not lonely people afraid of each other. I feel that our fears should be in direct proportion to our trust in God. He has a plan for our future. Early in the lockdown, someone started a prayer chain at 8 p.m. one night. I set an alarm on my phone that still chimes every night. And I pray for comfort and healing for those affected by the pandemic, whether it is physical, mental, or financial. We need to pray for our country and an end to COVID-19, and the end of other evils that are determined to divide us and take God out of everything. I'm so glad that Cursillo has taught me the value of God in my life and the need for community with fellow Christians. I miss all of you, and I'd be okay with a hug if we run into each other somewhere. De Dolores.